What's up, everyone? Welcome in to CBS Sports HQ. I'm Jacqueline D'Agostino, Jordan Giorgio, John Breech. We have the absolute honor of having John Breech in studio. We dressed up in Bengals colors for you.
Yes.
I appreciate it. You guys match. It's past Halloween, though. It's Thanksgiving colors, too.
Past Halloween.
It's Bengals colors. That's what it is,
That's what we're going with today.
Good celebration of Joe Burrow coming back.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, speaking of the NFL and speaking of Bengals, we are going to start today with the latest of the NFL playoffs after Week 13, and both the Colts and the Rams, Jacqueline, suffered losses this past weekend.
You know, I'm not mad about the Colts suffering a loss, but I mean, look at that. This is the playoff picture right now. It would be the Colts and the Jags there, an AFC South matchup if the season were to end today, because the Jags are now the leaders of the AFC South. The Patriots are the 1 seed over on the AFC side. On the NFC side, it is the Bears, which I can't believe I'm saying that. The Rams are the 2 seed on the NFC side, then it's the Broncos, the 2 seed on the AFC. So if the season were to end today, this is what it would all look like, all shake out. And Jordan, we got to talk about it because there's still a lot of football left to be played and a lot of things that could change and happen.
Most definitely. So let's go ahead and dive into the AFC and who really has the best path right now to the playoffs. You mentioned the Patriots and the Broncos, the teams in the mix. Where are you leaning, Breech?
Well, look, let's look at their schedules. I think that's the most important thing. Obviously, the Patriots are currently in the top spot, as we saw. But right now, it feels like that's where they're going to stay. I actually like New England to finish as the #1 overall seed, and it's all about their remaining schedule. We're looking at it right here. The Buffalo Bills, that game there in Week 16, that's their most difficult remaining game, but they have a bye to prepare for that. So you get a week off to kind of freshen up this late in the season. It's the last round of byes, and the Patriots got one. Then you see games against the Ravens, Jets, and Dolphins. So really the Bills are the only team they play above 500. Then you look at the Broncos. That is absolutely brutal. That is a nightmare schedule. You're talking about maybe you get the little layup with the Raiders on Sunday, but then you have to face the Packers. You have to face a Jacksonville team, Jacqueline, that is in first place in the AFC South. And then obviously the Chiefs, who could be very desperate in fighting for their playoff lives by the time we get to that point in Week 17. And then the Chargers, who could also be desperate for a playoff spot in Week 18. So I could see the Broncos losing 2, maybe 3 games there. And then, of course, the Patriots. It just feels like because their schedule, from a strength of schedule standpoint, is easier, it feels like they are the better bet to get the #1 overall seed and that important bye that comes with it.
Okay, so on the AFC side, you see it shaking out where the Patriots get the 1 seed. If we talk NFC, I'm still not used to saying that the Bears are the current 1 seed in the NFC. And the Rams are right there. Unfortunately, they had that loss for them to the Panthers. But, Breech, if we look up the remaining schedules, and we're looking at it here, Bears, Rams, obviously Eagles, Bucks, those are the division leaders. But for the 1 seed, who do you think gets it when it's all said and done? Do you think it's Bears or do you think it's the Rams?
The Bears. I do not think they get it. Oh, sorry. A little curveball there. Look, I like Chicago and what they've done up there. Ben Johnson has been working a miracle. I mean, he's got the team at 9-3 and the #1 overall seed right now. But you look at Chicago's schedule. They have one of the most difficult remaining schedules down the stretch. I mean, we're talking about 2 games against the Packers starting on Sunday when they play that first one in Green Bay. They still have to play the 49ers. They still have to play the Lions. So it's hard to see Chicago winning out or even just losing one of those games. I won't be surprised if they lose 2 of those games. And then we look at the Rams schedule, not as difficult as what Chicago will be facing. When you're looking at the Cardinals, they'll be favored in that game. They'll be favored against the Falcons in Week 17. They get to face the Cardinals again in Week 18. So those are 3 games where they will absolutely be favored. Then you obviously have the huge showdown against the Seahawks in Week 16. That could end up deciding the NFC West and the #1 overall seed. But out of these 2 teams, I like the Rams, but I do think that the winner of that Week 16 game between the Seahawks and the Rams ends up getting the #1 overall seed. So go ahead, circle that one right now. Clear your calendars. Call your friends up. Say you're not free when they play because that's how big that game's going to be. I think the #1 overall seed will go to the winner of that game.
Feels like the Rams, Christmas came early for them with that remaining schedule. Let's get back, though, to the AFC and some tiebreaker scenarios here. Here's what it looks like right now. Denver is ahead of New England at the moment based on common games record. Then we have the Chargers, as you see here, ahead of Indy and Buffalo based on conference record, but Indianapolis is actually ahead of Buffalo based on their conference record. So what do you make of the tiebreaker scenarios here, Breech?
Yeah, the Broncos-Patriots one is fun. Obviously, the Broncos were the #1 seed for about 24 hours, and then the Patriots jumped back on top with that win on Monday night. And so right now they have the same conference record at 6-2, which is the big tiebreaker because the Broncos and Patriots didn't play each other, so there's no head-to-head. Well, what happens if they have the same conference record at the end of the year? Then it becomes the common games tiebreaker, which is complicated because you have to look at both schedules and say, all right, what opponents did they have that were the same? And so right now the Broncos have the common games tiebreaker over the Patriots, and they play the Raiders on Sunday. If Denver wins that game, they essentially clinch the common games tiebreaker. So that will give Denver a huge boost if these two teams finish with the same record at the end of the season. And that loss to the Raiders in week 1, which was shocking at the time, could come back to haunt the Patriots. And then we look at the Chargers and Colts situation there in the wild card. So the Colts beat the Chargers. They're thinking, all right, well, why aren't we ahead of them? And it's because Buffalo threw a wrench into things. The head-to-head tiebreaker only matters if you're in a head-to-head tie-breaking situation. If you throw a third team in there, in this case, that is Buffalo. Well, the Bills didn't play the Chargers. The Bills don't play the Colts. So you take out head-to-head and you go to conference record, and that is why the Chargers at 7-2 in the AFC are ahead of the Colts and the Bills.
I feel like the AFC is a mess, and it feels like it is wide open because we're not talking about the Ravens. We're not talking about the Chiefs necessarily as being like the front runner, right? And we're talking about all these different tiebreaker situations, which makes me feel like the NFC is a little bit more easier to digest because there are tiebreaker scenarios and situations, but they're a little bit more cut and dry, and there's less of them-ish. I don't know. Am I making any sense here? But here they are. The Bears, as mentioned, they are ahead of the Rams based on conference records. So I feel like that's a little bit more, I can think that way. It makes more sense. The Rams ahead of the Seahawks based off of the head-to-head. So I think this is a little bit more digestible, Breech, on the NFC side of things.
Yeah, to explain the AFC, you have a book in front of you. It takes 5 minutes. NFC, it's okay. Well, the Rams have more wins in the conference than the Rams, and then the Rams are ahead of the Seahawks because of the head-to-head win earlier in the season. That is pretty easy to digest. And again, you know, the Rams still have to play the Seahawks. The Bears still have to play the Packers twice. So there are a lot of games on that each team still has to play that will ultimately decide this. But we could end up in a wild tie-breaking situation that could be even more complicated than the AFC because maybe the Bears, Rams, Eagles, and Seahawks all end up at 13-4 or 12-5. And in that case, we might have to sit here for 20 minutes and break it all down, but that would be down the road. I think for now, not very complicated in the NFC for the tiebreaker situation.
Let's get back to the complicated AFC, shall we? Because we're talking a lot about the Colts, and I mentioned it off the top. Obviously, things look a little bit different after the Colts suffered a loss to the Texans. They will see some tough defenses to round out their schedule. When you look at the Colts and their remaining schedule, what's their playoff outlook right now?
Well, I'm going to put a giant thumb down right now. I'm sorry, Colts fans. Look, according to our numbers at Sportsline, the Colts do have a 75% chance making the playoffs. According to my personal opinion from looking at that schedule, it is not very high. I'm going to throw a quick stat at you guys. Since 1990, there have only been 2 teams that have started the season 8-2 and missed the playoffs. And that's where the Colts could be heading. It hasn't happened since 1995. So this is almost uncharted territory. And you look at this schedule, they still have to play Jacksonville twice. They end the season against a Texans team that just beat them on Sunday. And they have 2 brutal non-conference games here coming up against the Seahawks and the 49ers. I'm not sure how many games the Colts win there. I mean, they could lose all of those, and they end up 8-9 with a losing record. Their quarterback has a broken fibula. Everything is falling apart for Indianapolis right now. So I think for them, if you were Indianapolis, your biggest hope is that you sweep Jacksonville. And if that happens, you give your chance a very, very good shot of getting into the postseason. So if you just win those divisional games, including that Texans one in Week 18, you're almost certainly in. And that's your path to the playoffs there. But it is not going to be easy.
No, the Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. So they're going to try to do it
Good luck.
on Sunday. I'm hoping not. And I've heard through the grapevine that they're gonna stack up Everbank. They want it to feel like a playoff game. And there are fans that are saying this game against Indy is more meaningful than that 2023 Chargers playoff game. They're putting it in the same caliber, which is kind of insane.
Crazy. Yeah.
But hey, meaningful games in the AFC South in November.
We're here for it.
Not something that I thought I'd be talking about, right? Okay, let's go to the NFC side of things. I want to talk about the Lions and their path to the playoffs, because right now they are on the outside looking in. It's a stacked NFC North with the Packers and the Bears, of course, in that 1 seed. And they're fighting with the Cowboys. They're facing them on Thursday night. This is a Cowboys team that has that tie, and they are still fighting to stay alive in it, Breech. So when it's all said and done with the Lions, walk us through their path to the playoff, and do you think they make it in as well? Do we get 3 NFC North teams?
Well, you said the Lions are on the outside looking in. They're like that outdoor cat, and it's snowing on them. They're trying to get inside, but they can't.
We love a cat. We love a cat reference.
That's where the Detroit Lions are right now. Let's look at their schedule. We're talking about a team that is 7-5. They are not in the top 7 right now, and this is a huge, huge game against the Dallas Cowboys, because the Cowboys are kind of in the same spot where this is a must-win situation for both teams. But even if the Lions win that, they have to go on the road and play the Rams in Week 15, which again is a very, very difficult game. And then you look at the fact that they are 2 games back of the 7th-seeded 49ers, 2 games in the win column. So when you're looking at what the Lions have to do, they're probably going to have to get to 11 wins, which means going 4-1 the rest of the way. They've got a Week 18 game against the Bears, and we're looking at that schedule again. Going 4-1 there is going to be difficult. The only silver lining I see for the Lions is that 4 of their next 5 games are indoors, and the Lions do play much better indoors, but that Week 18 game in Chicago could be snowing, 20 degrees. I don't like Jared Goff in that weather.
No, definitely not. But they do kick off Week 14 this Thursday night. It's going to be a good one against the Dallas Cowboys. Hey, let's do this more often. Don't be a stranger, John Breech. Come back whenever.
What a great time I just had with you guys. All right, open invite. I'm
whenever you want. We're here, okay?
Yeah, if you want to talk about cats, big cats,
we're here.
Your girls.
Yeah.
We're your girls, Breech. All right, NFL Today Plus streaming every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern. The crew has a ton of fun. Make sure you check it out on Sundays ahead of kickoff. You can watch it right here on CBS Sports HQ. You can also stream it on Paramount Plus. We're going to be right back here in just a few minutes after the break, because we have some breaking news coming our way, talking about one of the top quarterbacks in the class of 2026 flipping his commitment. We'll tell you where he's going. That is Jared Curtis coming up.